Ladies and gentlemen, please, sorry, we've had a minor little delay, but I need you close to your seats because we need you ready to resume positions in just a couple of minutes. So please, don't be strolling too far away. I know it's a lovely opportunity that you can talk with your colleagues. We are waiting the arrival of Your Excellencies. They're both in the House. They'll be with us in just a moment. And just to let you know, we have so much in store for us today. We really have an action-packed day, so much happening later today. We're going to hear from the CEO of FII, of course. We're delighted that she's in the House with us. We're also going to be discussing industrial strategy too, and really looking at industrial sovereignty as well in terms of what's happening around the world, how important that is. We'll look at geopolitics. Of course, this is the type of areas that we have no problem exploring here, and it's something that's absolutely very vital at the moment. When you look at the economic growth in countries, when you look at what's impacting our major decisions, what's happening in the world, we really need to look at the geopolitics of the region and indeed the wider world. There's so much happening in that space at the moment. What would FII priority be without a little bit of AI? And without a doubt, we will be focusing on that. But we're also going to be focusing on things like tourism, where, yes, we need AI, but we also need a lot more of the human touch. So we're giving you a very diverse range of programs throughout the day, so everything will be covered. Also looking at rethinking power in the region in terms of who has the power in the world and who's using it and what's going on here. We'll continue our discussion on energy, on the energy transition. This is vitally important, and we heard in the change makers, and we heard in my earlier panel there on the emerging markets, and sorry I had to cut them a little bit short, but we had a notice that our dear executives and our dear excellencies were on their way, which they are. They've just maybe had a little diversion, so please bear with us. They're not too far away, and they will be here, but we just want to keep you on edge a little bit, maybe that's it, and give you a little moment of reflection as well. So they'll be with us very shortly. And of course later today we're going to be looking at old Europe, new Europe, and really looking at what's happening in the region, what has happened in the past and how we learn from that and how we can actually educate and inspire and make sure that the new holders of power and get our new younger audience, of course, ready for taking over the reins of power. So we have so much in store for you today. As I said, we're only minutes away, but I know I said that a couple of minutes ago, so my spacing and my time does shift from time to time here. But it's great that you're all back here, and it's great that we've all come together in Tirana. I think this is the one thing we look at FII priority. It really has become almost a family. So it's lovely to see so many of you here, so many familiar faces, and again, really discussing the issues at the very heart of our economies, at the very heart of potential growth in the world, and indeed at the very heart of everything that FII has put together here. So please, I just ask for your patience for another couple of minutes. It won't be long, and I promise you it'll be fascinating and very interesting to hear from the President of the French Republic and, of course, the Prime Minister of Albania. I'm going to leave you with it, and as I say, please, take your seats. Momentarily, we're going to be heading, and our excellencies are on the way. So if you would, please take your seats or be very near your seats. That's probably the best I'm going to get at this point. Okay. I'd like now to invite the CEO of FII, really looking at FII priority, looking at the great work of the Institute. Penny Richards is with us, so ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Penny Richards. Many of you have met her before, many of you have not. She's recently appointed. I met her years ago when we worked together at BBC. So Penny, take center stage, please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen,
hello.
Penny Richards.
Hi. That's incredibly kind of you, thank you. First of all, before anything else, I wanted to say hello. A lot of you I've met. I've only been at FII for a few months. It's been a dazzling journey. I've met an extraordinary amount of people who are members of our community. They are either our strategic partners or their members. It's been an incredibly inspiring time meeting you all, so thank you very much, and thank you for being here. Let me just say something about why we're here. This is a summit that's defined by timing. and by place. Timing, because we meet, as we've been discussing already this morning, at a moment of radical transformation. Across the global economy, systems are being rethought, alliances are shifting, and assumptions that have been held for decades are being swept away. And place, because hosting this summit in the Balkans is really a statement from us. It signals that the global centre of gravity is no longer fixed. That future-facing investment now flows towards dynamism, towards regions with ambition, towards regions with appetite and untapped potential. This is not a symbolic step for FII. We've done it strategically. We know why we're here. We are so honoured that very shortly we are going to be joined by some extraordinary leaders. We know that they're glad that we're here, and we're very glad that they're hosting us. We really are especially grateful to our host, Prime Minister Edi Rama, whose leadership and vision have driven the transformation and modernisation of Albania's democracy. His historic re-election only a few days ago marked a turning point, not just for Albania, but for the entire region and its credibility as a rising investment hub. And we are really going to be honoured by the presence of President Emmanuel Macron, who has steered France, and with it Europe, through a turbulent global period since 2017, with conviction, with clarity, and a belief in Europe's power to lead. So, moments away, we're looking forward to it. As I said, I've spent the last few months meeting a lot of you, and a lot of you understand what FII is about. But please give me a few moments to explain to some of you who are new to our community. At its core, FII Institute focuses on creating an impact on humanity. We believe that investment can be a powerful force for good, and that investments that serve a purpose are good investments. We are a global non-profit foundation built on 3 pillars. We have the Think pillar, we have the Exchange pillar, and we have Act. They each work together as an engine of progress, powered by research, which is Think, powered by dialogue, which is Exchange, and clearly what we're doing now, and powered by investment, which is our Act pillar. Our Think pillar is our laboratory of ideas. We conduct evidence-based research, and you'll see some of that this afternoon, to identify global challenges and opportunities. One key initiative which we love and think is very powerful is the FII Priority Compass. It's a global survey capturing views from over 60% of the world's population. More than just a poll, this compass is a strategic guide, we think, highlighting global concerns and aspirations. Last year's compass revealed significant dissatisfaction, up to 52%, with global conditions from the people we surveyed. They were dissatisfied, nervous about economic uncertainty, about healthcare, corruption, climate anxiety, and the demand for purposeful leadership. Despite these concerns, the compass also proved optimism, thank goodness. It proved that optimism about technology and human potential persists. Our goal at FII is to translate these insights into actual opportunities. So I mentioned Think. Our Exchange pillar convenes these global summits. You're at an exchange event at the moment, bringing together heads of state, investors, innovators, and policymakers from Riyadh to Miami, from Rio to Hong Kong, Seoul to Tirana here, and beyond in the future. These events, we know, foster connections, and they drive purposeful partnerships and investments. I really hope you're taking advantage of that. And finally, our Act pillar actively invests in scalable, tech-driven ventures, addressing challenges like AI inclusion and global health equity. At FII, we don't just discuss impact, we invest in it. Very quickly, just my last thought, the real power of FII is not just our extraordinary and interesting conversations. It's the way we set the agenda for the future, guided by our community of change makers who are with us every step of the way, which is why I invite you, if you're not actually already part of what we're doing and not part of our membership community, to please join us. Become a co-architect, if you will, of our mission. As a member, you gain access to closed-door conclaves, curated networking events, exclusive reports, and the chance to contribute to our think tank agenda. So please think of it. But more than that, you join a movement of people who believe that the future is not something we inherit. It's something we build, boldly, collaboratively, and with true intent. So, thank you for being here. I shouldn't hog the stage for much longer. We have extraordinary people ahead. Thank you for your ideas, for your ambition, and your commitment to building something bigger than business as usual. Welcome to FII Priority Europe.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Penny Richards, our CEO for FII Institute. Penny, thank you so much. And an open invitation to each and every one of you here to make sure that you stay with us as members of the FII family. Again, with investors, innovators, everybody with an eye on the future and on a successful and very dynamic future. Yes, again, I'm telling you just another couple of minutes. I know I'm getting good at this, am I? You're beginning to maybe not believe me, but I promise you it is happening soon. So please, I'll be very grateful if you stay with us. Stay in your seats, just relax a minute, and it will all unfold momentarily. Okay, I'm getting better. Minutes, moments. We're almost there, and this time I promise you, what I tell you is right. So please bear with us, and we will be joined by the Prime Minister of the Republic of Albania, Edi Rama, His Excellency, and also the President of the French Republic, His Excellency Emmanuel Macron. Momentarily, I promise. Thank you.
Amid global uncertainty, Europe radiates with the potential of innovation, sustainability, and unity. In the race for global AI sovereignty, those who catalyze inclusive digital ecosystems will hold the future in the palm of their hand. Europe's clean energy revolution is igniting economic resilience and lighting the way for the global green transition. European biotech breakthroughs are ushering in a new era of precision medicine, unlocked by a deeper understanding of human biology. Propelled by optimism, the next generation of European business talent is recalibrating the continent's trajectory within the global economy. At the center of a stronger Europe is a renewed focus on building, not outsourcing, its industrial power. Trade alliances that once wove the world together are now shattering, driving inflation and deepening geo-economic divides. The question isn't whether capital can connect our fractured world, it's whether we can afford not to. Investing in a connected Europe and a connected world is how we will write the next chapter of global opportunity together.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister Edi Rama, thank you so much for your hospitality. Thank you for making this happen. Your Excellency, President Macron, thank you. Merci beaucoup de nous honorer de votre présence. Au nom du F1 Institute, sous le leadership de son Excellence Yasser Oumayyan, nous voulons vraiment vous dire que nous sommes très honorés de vous avoir parmi nous. And now it's my great honor to welcome on stage, please, a round of applause to our host, a man who, in the first history of Albania, was able to run 4 consecutive terms. Congratulations, Mr. Prime Minister, for your re-election. Prime Minister is not just a politician, he is a great artist, a painter, a sculptor, and we cannot wait to hear from you, Mr. Prime Minister. The floor is yours.
First of all, very much welcome to Tirana, and let me start by thanking wholeheartedly Richard and Cecilia for having kept the promise to come back with many people. And here we are, while I'm very, very pleased to be together with a great leader, very dear friend, the President of France, who comes in Tirana for the second time in 18 months, after no president came in more than 100 years. So thank you, Mr. President. And yes, I'm pleased, but I'm also terrified, because to make a speech right before Emmanuel is not the best you can have in life, because he knows how to speak, and he comes from a previous life where he had to deal with investors, with business people, with capital, while I come from a previous life where I had to deal with colors and exhibitions. So, Richard, you have put us in a very unfair competition, but I think it's a way to start talking also about the unfair tariffs. So, and before going further, I want to express my gratitude and also my big pleasure to a man that I admire, and he is so admired by everyone that his seat is between the President of France and the Prime Minister of Albania. So you can imagine the importance of the man. Yasir, thank you very much for coming and for generously bringing with Richard this wonderful platform. And let me say it all, I somehow felt empowered when I heard Emmanuel saying, "What are you doing in Tirana? This had to be in France first." So finally we did something before France, which is a good start. And so I want to be very brief, which is not my forte, by the way, because because in general Balkan leaders are long in their speeches, and after 4 elections won and starting the 4th mandate, the risk to be even longer is very, very present. But I'm going to try to be short, and I want to say that we are very proud for what we have achieved so far. Trust me, nobody would have imagined what is happening today, what happened yesterday. And I'm not talking about the imagination of 100 years ago. I'm talking about the imagination of 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. So we have come from a long way, and now we witness the results of the change we are making happen, and it's both satisfying and terrifying, because the responsibility is much bigger, and the demand to perform in the highest level is increasing every day. Yesterday we had a fantastic European Political Community Summit, and we realized how complicated it is to organize such a big event. But I think we did it well. And while in the western part of Europe they've done so many events of that kind, so at the end they think that the guests deserve just some cold catering food. We try to be at the top of the cuisine to make them feel how important they are, and I'm sure we succeeded. So we are here today to try and convey the message that this country wants more, and this country needs more people to trust in us. And the good thing about Albania is that, as you see, we are also good friends with many. And we feel blessed to be able to say that we are strategic partners of the EU, of the United States, but we feel also very blessed to say that we are close partners to Saudi Arabia, to UAE, to the Gulf countries. And by the way, we follow with admiration what is happening in these countries, the vision, the drive, the ambition of His Highness Mohammed bin Salman and of the President of UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed, and so on. So we are in a good place to try and learn from different realities, different path of life, and to do the utmost to make the best out of it. And now we are aware also that the time we live in is complicated. And I checked in the Webster where the trendiest word is polarization. And the definition of polarization is a verb dating back to the early 1800, originally describing light waves. And for the Collins Dictionary, the number one word was era, a particular time in someone's life or a specific career of a unique character. And era as in the closing of an era or the beginning of a new one. But beyond analogies, I believe and continue to believe with all my strength that when Donald Trump says that God saved him because he has a plan for America, he's saying just half of the truth. My belief is that the other half of the truth is that God saved him because he has a plan for Europe too. And I want to share with you the belief that when I heard the United States President speak about the golden age coming, my sensation was that, in fact, wishing all the best to the United States, of course, a golden era can open for Europe also. And it will be all about how far-sighted we'll be and how much able we'll be to think out of the box and to understand that in this world where everyone else is doing the unthinkable, Europe cannot just continue to think as it used to think before this moment appeared in our life. Europe also can and should think to do the unthinkable. And I believe it's not very difficult to understand what the unthinkable how the unthinkable might look like. And the experience is all there, the culture of change, need to change, and we can open really an incredible era for Europe. So, dear Emmanuel and dear friends, I was so happy to think that this forum could come here, also for another reason, because after having gone in some research to make my knowledge about the forum, what I realized is that this is the etalon of the effort to think differently. And I am fully committed to everything that can come out of it, and for everyone that can have the feeling that should come back to Albania and to invest and to stay. And to conclude, I want to tell you something that Emmanuel will maybe not be very happy to listen, but I have to share it with you. We opened with, thanks to his help and to the help of some other leaders, the new branch of the College of Europe in Tirana. It was a great decision that followed practically the previous decision to open the second branch, because the original is in Bruges, in Natol in Poland in the early 90s, to help the new countries emerging from behind the wall to join Europe. So for us, it was amazing. But you know what's happening? We have students from all over Europe. And the students coming from the old Europe want to stay and work in Tirana. No French student want to go back to France, Emmanuel. And I very much hope that you'll not be blamed by your opposition that it's you behind their drive to stay in Tirana by coming so often to Tirana. So thank you very much again. I want to escape this floor and to not enter in the merit of all the deep subject that Richard offered to us in the presentation, because there is someone else that knows exactly what to say and what to do about the deep subject. And the only thing that I think I'm doing very well is to stay close to this man and to learn from him as much as I can, and to take advantage of his friendship as much as I can for Albania, not for myself, of course, and to feel really blessed to lead this country in a moment in time when Emmanuel Macron leads his. So thank you very much. And I'm supposed to stay to answer a question.
No, thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. Yes, in fact, we cannot have you on stage and not ask you a very important question. Thank you for hosting FII in Tirana, because it's just a day after this great EPC summit. What happened yesterday? Can you share with us what were the main outcomes and what was discussed?
First of all, don't thank me for hosting, because what we we Albanians do as a first profession is to host. So if we would not be asked, to host, we would be basically jobless. So hospitality in Albania is our uniting religion. We are here, Muslims, Christians, in full harmony. Pope Francis, be blessed. When he came here, he said, "This is not harmony. This is fraternity, religious fraternity, and each one has its own way to look to God. But all of us have a very common conviction that is sealed in our first common law in the Middle Age, which says the house of the Albanian belong to God and the guest. So as far as God doesn't show up, guests show on his behalf. So you are God, Richard, today. If you would be alone with Cecilia, you would be the only god and goddess, but having Emmanuel here and Yassir, you have to share the place of God with some other gods. But also everyone else here that has come should feel like God, because this is how our common law at that time explains the knock at the door. The knock at the door is the will of God, so you have to open, and whomever is behind has to be welcomed. Even your enemy has to be welcomed, and you cannot touch him. And if he wants to stay at your home, you have to keep him at home, and you cannot touch him. You can hate him as much as you can, but you cannot say it. So it's just, and I truly believe it, it's just our big honor to host you, to host the forum, to host all the guests that are here, and we'll do our best to make you come back. And yesterday it happened exactly something similar, you know. Gods came from all over Europe, and we hosted this EPC, which originally has been launched as an idea by Emmanuel. I believe because of being an old French idea, going back to Abbé de Saint-Pierre, who offered the world that incredible treaty for perpetual peace. And, you know, if one would sit down and say, okay, let's think what is the unthinkable for Europe, I think that the treaty of Abbé de Saint-Pierre is the best start. It's very simple. How Europe can guarantee perpetual peace. And then when I supported the idea of EPC, many people, many countries who were not okay with that in the beginning, who thought that this is the typical French trick to offer a different type of cheese while not wanting to give you the cheese you are asking, which is EU enlargement, thought that I was somehow coming out, after so many years having left France, as a French recruited asset and working on behalf of the president to sabotage the enlargement and to push for this EPC. But in fact, it was the 6th summit, and this totally changed. And I believe the aggression of Ukraine has made everyone realize that this format is very much beneficial to everyone, because it gathers the big democratic Europe, from Great Britain to Turkey, from Switzerland to Azerbaijan and Armenia. And by the way, we were very pleased yesterday to see that Azerbaijan and Armenia are just one very small step to finalize the historical peace agreement. And so now, to see all this happening in Tirana is absolutely amazing. There was only one thing that we couldn't manage, because in the morning of day before, we had Sir Keir Starmer coming from Britain for a bilateral visit, which was the first bilateral visit in the history of a British Prime Minister. And he brought so much rain with himself.
Normal.
The whole day yesterday was under the clouds of British politics. And you see today, il y a le soleil with the Roi Soleil, you see, the Roi Second Soleil.
So you are making my life and my job very easy. And please, ladies and gentlemen, we are very happy to welcome on stage the President of the French Republic, Mr. Emmanuel Macron, the President. And Mr. President has just decided to change the rules. So in fact, you have agreed to have a short speech, and then Mr. President will accept to take a few questions from the floor. So be ready for your question. Monsieur le Président, à vous.
No. C'est ton speech, ça, par contre. I have the Albanese speech now. that I will deliver. Mr. Prime Minister, dear Edi, thank you so much for your hospitality indeed, but as well your friendship. Yes, here we are so happy to have you. And Richard and Cecilia, thank you for making it possible here, even if indeed I'm a little bit jealous. It's the first time in Europe is now in Albania. But this is it. Look, Edi delivered very important messages, and I do agree with them, and I don't want to repeat. But I just wanted to say a few words, perhaps about our Europe, but as well answer all the questions you have. Because the moment we are living in is quite chaotic in a certain way. And I think it's very important to have a clear strategy for France, for Europe, and for this larger Europe, which is today what we have in the European political community. And perhaps to answer your questions on our journey, if I may say, and the relationship as well with the US, China, and so on. But my conviction for the European strategy in this context is that we have to take this opportunity to accelerate and have a clear strategy of competitiveness, investment on the top priority, and become really a power. And I will revert on that. We need a big acceleration, and competitiveness is absolutely critical. Mario Draghi wrote a wonderful report making it very clear on what we should do. But this competitiveness should be first based on simplification. We have to streamline our regulation in order to resynchronize with the rest of the world. And this is one of the top priorities we have. The Commission started to make some moves, but they are probably too shy. And there is today a very strong alignment, especially with Chancellor Merz. And we issued a paper a few days ago, an op-ed, where clearly we commit together to streamline a lot of ongoing regulations if we want precisely to resynchronize. And especially CS-DDD and some others are, let's be clear, to be revisited, not to say out of the table. The second point is the deepening of the single market. We have to deal with 27 regulations, and it's too complicated still for a lot of players to deal with the European markets. And our strength is the fact that the European Union is a market of 450 million inhabitants, and it's not seen and played by, I would say, entrepreneurs like that. So the deepening of the single market is just taking advantage of the taxation we are putting on ourselves. Indeed, we have the tariffs, and we can revert on that if you want. But we put tariffs on ourselves with our own regulations in the single market. So this is the second point. The third one is that we have to create now a single market on three critical sectors where it was excluded from the very beginning. Telco, energy, and finance. It was not part of the single market. But now we have to create a single market for these sectors because this is the best way to clearly integrate our model, have much more capacity to invest, and deploy an actual financial place. And part of this agenda is obviously the Capital Market Union, which is one of our top priorities and clearly an area of strong convergence between Germany and France. Because we do believe that we have, and it's on top of the fact that we underuse our single market, but we are underusing our own savings. If you take the savings of the world, and I put the Gulf apart, given the structure today of your economy, but even if you compare China, US, and Europe, we have much more savings. But the problem is that all these savings are put in institutions that we over-regulated not to invest on equity and innovation. And this is, I would say, the beauty for other continents of the past 15 years. Because of a financial crisis which came from market players in the US, we decided collectively to over-regulate financial institutions in Europe. But this is a clear outcome of the last 15 years. And we put with Solvency and Basel a series of layers of regulation on these key players which are critical for the financing of the European economy. 75% of our financing goes through banks and insurance. And through these regulations, we just stop their capacity to finance innovation and equity. And this gap in innovation and equity is the first explanation of the growth difference between the US and Europe. So on top of simplification, deepening of the single market and this acceleration, we have to create this capital market union, meaning we have to resynchronize our regulation with the US on banks and insurance, and we have clearly to rechannel our savings to be sure that they go to the right place, meaning the right locations and the right sectors. It's absolutely key. Here is, for me, the top priority of the European Union, and everything is about speed and our capacity to deliver this agenda as soon as we can, and with the right magnitude, the right scale. Second point is that our Europe clearly has to invest on three top priorities: green tech, AI, and defense and security. And these three areas will require much more public and private investment. This is why we will have to reshape our common budget, because we need much more common financing, but we will have as well to deploy much more capacity of the private sector to go in these critical areas. And my third point, when I spoke about becoming a power, is linked to the two first ones. We are in a moment of truth. And reverting to this intuition of Edi, that it's not just for the US that Donald Trump's policy could be a good news, but it's as well for the Europeans. I'm sure about that. I'm a strong believer in this European strategic autonomy or independence. Not to say I believe in autarcia, it doesn't make sense. But I think we have to choose our partnership, but we have to reduce our dependencies. And through COVID time, through Russian war in Ukraine, and the energy crisis and so on, we experience the cost of dependencies. And now the question for us is, do we want to become an economic and financial power, a green and AI power, and a geopolitical power being in capacity to protect itself? This is the question raised to the Europeans. The answer has to be yes, for sure, but this is a new phase of the European journey. First, we mutualize the key elements, coal and steel, which was the basis to make war, to avoid, I would say, the domestic war in Europe. Second, we created a market in the 80s. Now we would have to create a geopolitical power. And this is our agenda. I just want to add one point about the European political community and the importance of Albania in such an agenda. I strongly believe that beyond the European Union, we have this larger Europe, with Norway, UK, Western Balkans, Ukraine. The reality of Europe is that this is a place of 650, 700 million inhabitants, which are absolutely not taken into consideration, neither from a geopolitical point of view, nor from a financial or economic point of view. Let's better integrate this place. Let's deal together on energy, on migration, on defense, on trade. If we coordinate this place with very stable countries, without wars and destabilization, if we better integrate this place beyond the EU enlargement, and I'm a strong believer and advocate of the EU accession for your country, you know it, for 27, because you are doing the reform. But beyond that, we have a huge opportunity to gather these 700 million inhabitants and make it a place to be respected by all the others. And it's a unique opportunity. This is why, for me, EPC is so important. I don't want to be longer. I want just to now answer your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. So we have time for 3 questions. And while you will raise your hand, I will ask you the first question, since I have the privilege to be with you on stage, Mr. President. In 48 hours, you are hosting a Choose France Summit in Paris. If I'm an investor, I would like to know why I should choose France or Europe to invest, and France in particular.
Thank you for this great opportunity. And by the way, thank you again, because yes, here is one of the regular key people, and I want to thank you and the PIF and all the investors for their trust. Look, 8 years ago, we delivered a big reform agenda on labor laws, capital gains taxation, corporate tax, and so on. So we passed a series of reforms to make France a better place to invest in and to increase our competitiveness and our attractiveness. We got the result because an EY just issued its ranking. We've been the number one in terms of attractiveness in all the rankings for the last 6 years. So it's consistent and it delivered. We created more than 2,200,000 jobs in the countries and decreased unemployment rates. And we started to reindustrialize the country. We are number one in startup creation, number one in scale-up creation, and number one in continental Europe on AI, with a lot of assets. So we delivered the right macroeconomic picture. Second, we are in a phase of stabilization. This is why I took a political decision last year, because till the end of my mandate, I want to make all the political forces in a certain spectrum to work together and learn that, because I didn't want to have, I would say, a pre-pricing of instability. So now, for me, the obsession will be stability of this competitiveness, attractiveness package. Third, we have good qualifications. It's one of the best places in Europe in terms of qualification. We increase our investment on research, higher education, and for instance, if you take AI, all the competences you need for AI, we are number one, by far, in Europe. And a lot of our talents were used to go to the US, and now we do our best to keep them. It was before Albania, Edi. Because yesterday we opened together a 42 school, which is a wonderful asset, and with a lot of students. Third, energy. Don't underestimate the fact that in France, you have a place where you have pilotable, low carbon, and competitive energy. And in the moment, it's unique. We are already decarbonized, and because of our mix, based on more than 75% on nuclear energy, due to the fact that we decided additional renewables, but a big bunch of new nuclear investments 3 years ago, and we are delivering this agenda, we are extremely competitive on this field. Last year, to give you an example, we exported 90 terawatt-hour. 90, which means we can create a lot of data centers, totally decarbonized in France, without jeopardizing what we need for households and companies. And in parallel, we have a big program of decarbonization. So here is the French mix, and this is, for all these reasons, good macroeconomic package, this moment of stabilization and visibility, talents, energy. I could add, obviously, strong infrastructures and a good system of education and healthcare. This mix makes France a very attractive place. On top of that, what we have to do now, the top priority is the one I mentioned. This is the European agenda for competitiveness and simplification. If we mix the two, I think for a long time we will be a very brightest place to invest in. Thank you.
Question from the first row. So please, if you can introduce yourself as the chairman of Leonardo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. C'était très rafraîchissant de vous écouter. I'll ask a question not on aerospace and defense, but more generally. I've heard the phrase that last century was the century of democracies, and this century is a century of superpowers. Do you agree with that?
I didn't hear the beginning. The last century?
The last century was a century of democracy. This century, the century of the superpowers. Do you agree with that?
Look, it depends if you consider that superpowers cannot be democracies, and I think this is our dilemmas. I think clearly we are in a moment of destabilization of the international order. It's clear that if you take the past century, I'm not so sure it was a century of democracies, but constantly, especially during the second phase of the 20th century, you had a constant expansion of democracies. And I think probably a lot of people were too much naive and thought that it was a spontaneous and natural expansion of democracies. especially after 1990s. Now we have started to enter in a new phase, in a new time where democracies are at risk. And I think we have internal and external reasons. First, I think we have a crisis of democracies themselves. We have a crisis of efficiency because our democracies became too slow, probably too complicated. And I don't want to enter into too much details, but we all experience the fact that now there is this challenge for democracies to reaccelerate and clearly be at the service of people and not just monitoring too many processes they created for themselves. So the good checks and balance was replaced by a sort of paralysis. The problem is, I would say, the overreaction to that. And if the best reaction to be efficient is to kill all the checks and balance, we would have a big problem. So I'm very much in favor of checks and balance. I'm not very sure when I see a country without any type of regulation and counterpower. I strongly believe we need checks and balance in our countries because it's good for the long run, but we have to make our countries and our democracy much more efficient. Second, I think we had the emergence of a very powerful model with long-term and strategic leadership. And they delivered and they got results in China, in the Gulf, and in other places. And so now we are challenged in our capacity precisely in the global environment to deal with that. And the question raised by a lot of countries is, are you sure that democracy is the best model? And third, there is a collapse of the international order due to the fact that there is a lack of efficiency of this international order. WTO for trade. So the result is that we got tariff. I do prefer the good old WTO, to be honest with you. But we made it inefficient at the end of the day. Second, we are not able to fix peace and war issues. So the big risk is to see indeed these superpowers coming. But at the end of the day, is it good for us collectively? I think it would be a disaster. So I think we have to find a way to make our democracies still democracies but much more efficient. We have to recreate a global order which will not be a jungle, where you have tariffs everywhere and where you are just the law of the strongest to be imposed to the others. This is why, in such a situation, we have to make Europe much stronger, much more independent. And for me, the strategic autonomy agenda is critical for the Europeans, but broadly because we are the one to be able to reshape this agenda. Second, we need a very strong coordination between US and Europe. And third, we have to reshape the global order with new discussion on currency, trade, defense and security, involving US, Europe, China, the Gulf, India, and in fact, BRICS countries. And for me, the new discussion to come and to organize it between G7 and BRICS, for sure.
Thank you. Question from the CEO of Aqua Power.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I moved to Saudi Arabia about 2.5 years ago, fascinated by the speed and scale of Vision 2030 and the change that it's bringing there. To give you an idea, we are building at the end of the year 10 gigawatt of combined cycle, 30 gigawatt of renewables, so the same amount of capacity of Spain together. I really believe, we spoke about energy, you mentioned that in the panel before also, there's a great opportunity to build an energy bridge between Saudi Arabia and Europe, from the Gulf to Europe, not only in power with cables, but also green hydrogen, which today is cheaper to produce than gray hydrogen in Europe due to the cost of gas. You mentioned that. What's your suggestion to accelerate the development of this? We're talking with companies, we're talking at single government level, we're talking to the EU. How can we bring it all together to accelerate building this bridge?
Thank you, Marco.
No, thank you. I strongly, I don't want to be too technical. First, I think in Europe we can do much more in this field if we simplify as well. This is typically an area where if in Europe you simplify the capacity to produce by being probably much more realistic on the standard, and if we better integrate and create an actual European grid, we can do much more on renewables and efficiency in terms of energy. Second, I'm always careful on the green hydrogen model. I do believe in the fact to produce low carbon, low cost energy, for instance, in Saudi Arabia, and to channel it through cables, because we know the techniques, it's quite clear. When you look at the metrics, but probably a lot of you are much more expert than I am, to transport green hydrogen is much more challenging. Probably it makes more sense to transport low carbon energy and make the electrolysis on the place you produce. But it's to be discussed. Nevertheless, we have a very important project we launched with India, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Europe and US, which is IMEC. I'm a strong believer in this project. And the idea of IMEC is precisely to frame all the infrastructure and connection. And as you can imagine, this is a sort of pacific and friendly alternative on another road, if I may say, but from India to Mediterranean Sea. And it's railways, roads, energy, trade, and so on. And obviously, you are the link in the middle. We have a lot of financing. We have Global Gateway and the European financing being mobilized on it. We have World Bank being part of this project. I tasked Gérard Mestrallet for France being in charge of IMEC. So I strongly believe if we accelerate now just the roadmap, we have all the money and we can deliver very concrete projects. I was with Prime Minister Modi in Marseille, for instance, and we just assessed all the projects we can have from India through Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar to Marseille. It's absolutely incredible. And by the way, Albania has a place in this road, and it makes a lot of sense. So I think we have to focus now on the basis of this G20 project with the right skills and right tools, meaning World Bank, EU financing, and all the different governments financing to deliver this roadmap. But I'm a strong believer in these connections.
Mr. President, thank you very, very much for being with us and for answering to these questions. I know you have a very time.
Thank you.
Please stay in the room.
No, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Thank you, Richard and Cecilia, for everything. Yes, here. Thank you so much. And let me just say in a few words, it's great to have you in Europe. I know that you come from a different part of the world. This is a stable and a reliable place. And in this crazy world, don't underestimate the strengths of such qualities. And I'm very happy you are here beyond, our jokes with Prime Minister Edi Rama. Because here in Albania, clearly, you have the entry point in this region of Western Balkans, but much more broadly. And it's a key point in the Mediterranean place and Europe. So I do encourage you to invest in Albania because you have a strong leadership. And I'm not just speaking because he is my friend, because he delivered already. And in 2 years to come, as now he has clear mandate, he will join the EU and it will be key. Second, I want you to know and to be sure that we will deliver as Europeans. Now there is a strong alignment between Germany and France. We will gather our colleagues to deliver clearly the agenda I mentioned. So please invest in Europe. Please do believe in Europe, because we need your trust, your investment, in order to deliver this very ambitious agenda, because I think this is the right one as well, not just for the Europeans, but all the other regions to create much more stability. Thank you very much.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for President Macron. And while Their Excellencies will leave the room, please, you have to stay in the plenary hall, and I encourage you to listen to the two coming sessions. Amazing session with Jared Cohen from Goldman Sachs, and another great session with Linda Rama, who of course do not need any introduction. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll be kind enough to stay in the plenary hall where Their Excellency will be exiting. Thank you.
shumë politikën që kemi që shumë shpejt do jemi në rrugën e bukur.
Now we have all the resources to feel like in the European city.
Our destination, our geography, our history, the past, the current, and the future belongs to Europe. No one was just born in Europe.
Yes, I consider myself an European.
Yes, of course. I see myself as a pure European in many ways.
I don't know if it's good, it's bad, or if it will be easy or difficult for us to be part of it, but they should try.
Of course, why not? We have potential in many ways, so we just need some changes.
Duhet të bashkohet, sepse do kemi shumë të mira dhe nga pjesa e forcave të armatosura, do jemi me të sigurt, se edhe neve për më mirë të spitalet, gjitha gjërat do mendoj se do kemi që më të mirë.
I've seen places like Bulgaria and Romania that are more advanced than us, and we have the same conditions.
Slovenia, it may seem like a bridge, you know, to connect also the countries with each other.
Are you still filming or? Yeah. Okay. I'll just wait. Okay. que tu veux? Tu veux? Ça va, hein? C'est présidentiel.
Juste là. Le véhicule que vous voyez, c'est le début du cortège.
From Nigeria? Yoruba.
Qu'est-ce que vous avez planché là? Avec les dames, bravo, hein.